Did you release a single and then maybe you saw it got 10,000 streams, but when you dropped the album, that same song started back at 0? Or maybe you dropped a clean version for radio, but those plays didn't help your main version climb the charts at all. There is a specific way to use one ISRC code to force 5 different versions of your song to feed the same chart position. And most distributors won't tell you this because, well, it is essentially a loophole that they'd rather not have you know. But by the end of this, you'll know the exact ISRC stacking system used by the top 1% to maximize every single stream and keep your DSP profile looking like a major label artist. My goal is to help you understand that utilizing ISRC loopholes are the key to unlock the kind of algorithmic momentum that triggers discoverability for Spotify users and other users alike. And I'm going to show you a quick system that makes it simple for you to turn one recording into a stream generating machine without making your page look like a junk drawer. And I think you kind of understand where I'm going with that part. So let's start with this. Which versions can and cannot use the same ISRC? A lot of you guys will release a single nowadays to one broad customer, and that is the general consumer pool. Now, even albums are packaged wrong these days. I would just so you understand. However, there is a lot of utility that is left on the floor of the studio, and what you left on the floor is the hidden gold that we need to monetize our music with power. So our solution is to use your ISRC on the versions where we can get multiple uses out of the same number, which will spike your popularity score on DSPs. But you do want to be careful not to stack too many versions into the same ISRC for discoverability issues and DSP problems later. So let me explain which uses you can use your ISRC on multiple times and which use cases are a no-go. So the first one is the main version, which is the explicit or dirty version, which will be your primary master. For those people who make clean music, that will be your main version. But for most people out here in the world, we're kind of making explicit music. Now, the second one would be the clean version or the radio edit. And this is the most common use of the loophole. By using the same ISRC, you ensure that every play at a middle school dance or in places where clean music is needed or on the radio counts toward your main chart position. Number 3 is the instrumentals. As long as the length is identical or within a few milliseconds, you can use the same ISRC. This funnels background music listeners into your main song stats, and it also gives utility to your music. Now, the open verse or the TV track, which is the same as the instrumental if the duration matches the main track. You can reuse the ISRC to capture those streams. And I really only recommend on the open verse using one verse. Our fourth use is the acapella. Since it is a slice of the original recording, it can technically share the same ISRC. Now, there is a note here. Some distributors may flag this if the file is significantly shorter, so you want to include the silence at both ends of the audio file and on the song. This is a gray zone, and I don't like giving this to the general public, so I'll explain why I don't want to do that later. So our fifth one are remasters. If you are just making the song louder or clearer without changing the arrangement, you can keep the same ISRC, and I would recommend that you do so. Also, when we get down to the album and the EP repackaging, when a single you released 3 months ago finally makes it onto your album or makes the cut, you must and should use the same ISRC to bring those existing streams with it. And then of course, if you're gonna do a greatest hits album, if you're kind of doing something nostalgic, because most people don't do that anymore, the same rules apply here. Now, here's where you cannot use the same ISRC. Remixes. So if a new producer adds a different beat or a guest artist adds a new verse, it's a new work. And some will argue this, but you still want to play it safe in this position. I know that you can put an artist on a separate verse and the beat is the same and the hook and all the other verses the same, but it's still a new thing. Now, if you want to be a renegade and try it out, you can. I know some people do it. Some people get away. Some people don't. But the way the fingerprinting is now, they can find the little nuances that are different. All right, now the sped up and slowed down version or the reverb version or the VHS version, whatever fancy edits you got going on, that needs a new ISRC. Even though it's your song, the pitch and tempo change and they create a new acoustic fingerprint. So you want to use a new ISRC for that. The live versions, which are a recording from a concert, is a different performance. I know the song's the same, but it's a different performance. You need a new ISRC. And then if there is significant length changes, so if you have a club edit with a 1-minute drum intro that makes the song 4:30 instead of 3:15, it needs a new ISRC. These are best reserved for later in the video, which I'm gonna talk about later. And then music videos. This is for a lot of people who really don't know. Even the audio is identical in the music video, but the video file itself requires a separate ISRC, often distinguished by a 9 in the 8th character position of the code, right? Now, ignoring these guidelines will hurt your release game in many ways, including ways that aren't even around yet. So you'll want to stay clean for future proofing. Now, if you think that this is nonsense, just wait until the next step. It will blow your mind. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're squeezing the maximum juice out of one ISRC. Step 2 here, or part 2 here, is the single versus the maxi single. Because when it comes to singles, most artists release one version. When it comes to a maxi single, most artists have never even heard of it. So its value is lost out there. And when it comes to the album, the music is great, but the codes are wrong. So let's address the first two. To understand what you're doing, we need to look at the history of each. Then we need to formulate our winning strategy. And this is you're gonna be like, yo, I never knew that. Trust me, I know. Some of you all are gonna get it, but some of you are not. So check this out. Let's talk about the maxi single first. The original purpose of the maxi single was a combination of technical necessity for DJs and a clever marketing hook for collectors and super fans. Before streaming, it served 3 specific roles that mirror what we're doing today with the ISRC. So in the 1970s, we had to have a solution for the disco, because back in the 70s, the format was born from the 12-inch vinyl. The problem was that the standard 7-inch 45 singles could only hold about 3.5 minutes of high quality audio. And if you tried to squeeze a 7-minute disco track onto a 7-inch, the grooves had to be thinner, which made the bass sound a lot weaker and the record a lot more quiet, which was a disaster for a club DJ. Now, the solution came around with engineers like Tom Moulton, who started pressing single songs onto 12-inch album-sized blanks. And this allowed for wider grooves and deeper bass, and crucially, extended mixes or remixes that let DJs transition between songs more easily, ultimately becoming the club edit. Then in the 1980s to 1990s, we moved into the service pack era for DJs. By the time of the CD era, the maxi single became a one-stop shop for professional DJs. The contents would typically feature the radio edit, an instrumental, and an acapella, and maybe a club remix. Labels realized that if they gave the DJ all the tools or utility on one disc, the DJ was more likely to play the song. You see where I'm going with this? You catching it? You know what I mean? So now we move up to the standard single. Now, when it comes to the standard single, specifically the late 80s to the early 2000s, the 3-track single, often called the CD single, or sometimes referred to a maxi single still, depending on the territory you're in, was a calculated move to balance affordability for the fan and chart manipulation for the label. And while it shared the same service pack DNA of the DJ only 12-inch that they would get for promotional uses, the 3-track version sold to the public had a very specific trick behind it. Number 1 was the value for money illusion. Labels knew that a casual fan might hesitate to pay $4 for just one song, which was the A side and a throwaway song on the B side. So the trick was, by adding a 3rd track, usually an instrumental or a remix, the label could market it as a maxi single. The psychology behind it was it made the consumer feel like they were actually getting a mini album rather than just a song. This is called perceived value. And this boosted sales volume significantly amongst teenagers with limited allowances. Now, the second part comes in when it comes to the Billboard UK charts and their weighting system. Now, this is the closest historical ancestor to our ISRC strategy. The loophole is that in many chart systems, especially the UK's official charts, a single was strictly defined by track count. If you had 1 or 2 tracks, it was a single. But if you had 4 or more, it risked being classified as an EP or an album, which competed in a different, harder chart. The sweet spot ended up being the 3-track single. It was the maximum amount of value a label could give a fan while still keeping it in the singles chart. It allowed them to dominate the singles rankings by giving fans a reason to buy the physical disc rather than just waiting for the radio. So now let's talk about the B-side graveyard, which is the discovery side for us. Now, before recommended for you playlists existed, the 3-track single was how labels tested new material. Track 1 would be the radio hit, or that's our main ISRC. Track 2 would be a remix or an instrumental, which was for the DJ, or it was superfan bait. And then track 3 would be a non-album track, which would be the B-side. Now, the goal is if fans started calling the radio stations asking for the B-side or track 3, the label knew knew that they had a second hit on their hands without spending a dime on a new marketing campaign, and you can do the same thing to test. This is actually the inverse of what you know as waterfalling. Now, if all of this blew over your head, you ain't ready. But however, if you understood all of this, you got the juice now. Now, you might be thinking, well, who would need all of those versions? Just understand there are needs for all of those versions, and there are several types of DJs that exist that aren't necessarily in record pools or radio DJs that still need this stuff. Even remixers and producers. It's literally sampling bait and awareness boosters built in. And believe me, DJs do complain about the quality of how AI separates stems. So they need quality versions. And this will lead into my next point. But at the end of the day, we need as much orange juice as possible out of this ISRC. So far, we've covered when to use the ISRC and where to maximize it. But this next part is where most artists and their teams confuse their fan bases. Waterfalling, and also giving too much to the general public. So stay with me. And side note, if you need a strong business foundation to run your record label with funding, grab my 60-day record label system complete with my funding partners beneath this video to fund some of this process that you're building right now. Here's the issue with waterfalling. Okay, as I said earlier, waterfalling is the inverse to the 3-single EP with the test single on the back. Waterfalling was the first rendition of maximizing your ISRC as of late, but a few years in, it started posing some problems. DSP charted singles from different waterfalling singles. People who already discovered you clicked off early when the second single came on that they've already heard, increasing the skip rate, and artists started to notice that their pages were getting a little bit messy. So the solution is to release a single properly like they did back in the day to increase the ISRC usage and use the Maxi Single approach to waterfall. You see what I'm saying? So instead of putting the new single and then the previous single, you just flip the order. You test with the second single to see if it'll work, and then that new single here. That way you can get a leg up on the marketing for the next run, or it'll let you know if you need to do the next run at all. You see what I mean? So, for example, it can look like this. You have the main, you have the clean, and the instrumental, which can all share the same ISRC, or you can have the clean and the instrumental, and then the test single. You see what I'm saying? Or for some of you all, you might want to do, I'm gonna get into it in a bit, but you might want to add a fourth one, okay? If you're making music that is explicit. Now here's the Maxi Single part. You can do the main, the clean, the instrumental, and the test single, or remix, right? Because the remix can still be a test. Like, maybe the main mix is okay, but let's do a quick remix to see if this version of it might be a little bit better, which happened in the past. Or you can do a clean instrumental remix / extended mix, which some DJs like, right? So you can extend the song if you have that type of music, and you can also do a test single. You see what I'm saying? This way, your single releases can still be presented as such, but fans will understand that this is a new single release with a trial record. You don't think that they know, but they do, right? Because they know what you're marketing. But at the end of the day, we want to maximize the ISRC, but still keep the customer experience and our catalog clean. So even though you can waterfall and there's nothing wrong with it, understand it starts to get convoluted a little later down the line when you get close to your album. You see what I'm saying? Now, what should be reserved for DJs and sync agent service packs? Because I said I was going to get to this later. I was going to tell you what to do with that acapella. Now, you may notice how I did not give the general public the acapella, and even though you could give the general public the TV track, I never listed it. That's because if you did that, the general public would have too much access to you, and no boundaries would be set between you and how much access and quality manipulation they can do with your vocals. Okay? These versions should be reserved for DJ service packs, DJ pools, and sync agents. Public access is dangerous, and even though they can make stem versions for themselves, you don't want to do the work for them at a premium. You see what I'm saying? If you do it this way, you still have the separation layer, giving your DJs and your agents consideration and your audience enough to chew on. The audience is totally fine with the instrumental. Don't worry about them. So everything that should go to the DJs and sync agents is this: the acapella, the club edit, the vocal up version, plus 1 dB or plus 3 dB, the TV track, which is the hook only, plus background vocals and ad-libs, a 30-second bump stop with the main mix and the instrumental, or a 15-second bump stop with the main mix and the instrumental. That's mainly for the sync agents right there. And then additionally, you can also do the extended mix for those DJs as well. So you can, like, instead of just the club edit, it can be a real extended mix with extra bridges and vamps and stuff like that, or instrumental breaks and things like that. Now, Is this a lot of work? Sure, but not too much. You know what I'm saying? You're in the music business and you have to service your records. But if you really want to make money in this game, this is what needs to be done. The lazy folks won't survive here, and at the end of the day, this is how you get gallons of juice from one single. So here's what you can do. I want you to take this metadata audit. So write down your next 3 releases and look at your hard drive and ask yourself, do I only have a main mix ready for the distributor? If your answer is yes, you aren't ready to release. You need to go back to the session and bounce the clean, the instrumental, and the TV track at the exact same length as that main mix. If you don't have these files, you don't have a release ready yet. Then we need to do the ISRC mapping. So map out your Maxi Single on paper before you hit upload and decide right now which 3 versions are going to the general public to trigger that ISRC popularity score, and then which versions are going into your secret service pack for DJs and sync agents. If you don't characterize your fans by their use case, you're just throwing seeds at a sidewalk. And to be honest with you, sync agents and DJs can be fans too. They need utility that I mentioned earlier in the show. The goal is to truly understand what a fan base is and the types of people it contains. It's not just listeners, it's DJs who need tools, creators who need background music, and parents who need clean versions. The real question isn't, should you do this? It's how much longer can you afford not to? Now, if you're a rapper, you cannot afford to not have a clean mix. I mean, you're just leaving money on the table. But if you think using the same ISRC for an instrumental is cheating or will get your account flagged, all you have to do is look at the major labels. They've been doing this since the 90s. As long as the duration matches and the recording is essentially the same work, you are operating within the legal framework of the IFPI. If you think bouncing 5 versions of one song is going to take all day, realize it's not 2005. We don't bounce in real time anymore. It's one 10-minute session at the end of your mix that sets you up for 10 years of residual streaming power. Now, if you think you need a major label staff to manage these codes, all you have to do is use a spreadsheet. I mean, this ain't rocket science. Copy and paste the ISRC from your first main upload into the optional use your existing ISRC box on your distributor for the clean and the instrumental. You are your own label manager now, so act like it. Now, by not adopting this method, you're literally losing money. Every time a DJ plays a pirated rip of your song because you didn't provide a high quality instrumental on streaming, that's a royalty check that never gets written. And yes, DJs can stream music in Serato now. They can use their Spotify. But even then, if you still don't give them a service pack, they're ripping the song. It's like, yo, I would love to have that DJ's email for my service pack rather than them ripping it from YouTube, right? So think about the frustration of seeing a viral moment happen on TikTok with a snippet that isn't linked to your main ISRC. It's the choice between being an amateur artist who drops music in praise or a music executive who services a market and scales. You either own your data or your data owns you. See what I'm saying? At the end of the day, if you were struggling with fragmented streams that never seem to add up to a chart position, a messy DSP profile that looks like a hobbyist page, or feeling invisible to DJs and sync agents because you didn't give them the tools to work with, you now have the means to become the systemized mogul you always wanted to be. You aren't just making songs anymore, you're building a catalog with institutional power. Music money makers, if you make music, you should always make money. Log on to musicmoneymakeover.com, grab the 60-day record label system beneath this video, complete with my funding partners, book a call, join the Music Money Makers community, grab the free stuff, and watch this next video right over here to save your career. And I'll see you next time. Peace.